Today we're going to be talking about how to graph a line if the equation is in slope-intercept form. So the first step is you need to identify the b value, which is the y-intercept, and also the m value, which is the slope. After you have those two values identified, you need to plot the y-intercept on the graph. It's always the very beginning, and that's always what we're going to want to plot first. If the slope is a whole number, you're going to need to make it into a fraction by putting it over the number 1. Okay, so for example, if we had a slope of 3, then we would change that and we would make it 3 over 1 in order to plot the additional points. And you plot the additional points using the rise over run pattern that we practiced when we got the slope from the graph. If the slope is positive, in order to add the additional points, you're either going to go up to the right, or you can also go down to the left. Okay. If it's a negative slope, you can go up to the left, or you can go down to the right. Okay, so remember, positive slopes look like this. So that would be, up to the right, down to the left. Negative slopes look like this, which would be up to the left or down to the right. So you're just going to follow that pattern when you're putting the additional points on the graph. Let's go ahead and look at our first example. We see here that it says y equals 2x minus 4. Okay, so that means that our m for this first example is going to be 2/3, and our b is -4. Okay, I'm getting those from my equation. This number right here is going to be my m, and then the last number at the back, that -4, is going to give me that -4. Okay, so the -4 is what I plot on my graph first, right? -4, I'm always going to put that y-intercept there first. That's where the graph is going to impact the y-axis, and then I use my slope to add the additional points. So since my slope is 2 over 3, it's positive. I'm going to go up 2 to the right 3 as much as I can. Over here, you can see it kind of run out of space, so I'm just going to put a little ghost one there. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect those dots. Okay, and that's how we would graph the equation of a line. Looking at the next example, if we just slide over a little bit, we can see y equals -1/4 x plus 1. Okay, so same thing here. We would identify the m and the b, right? My m for this second example is -1/4. Sorry, that was hard to read. Try again. -1/4. The b is +1. Okay, so the m, it's just going to be those first values. It's going to be our m, and then the b value will be the plus b that we have there at the back. So that's where it will come from. Okay, and the b is what we're going to put on our graph first. So since my b is +1, my first dot is at the y value of +1. That is my y-intercept. And then my slope is going to be -1/4. So I'm going to go down 1 to the right 4. To get my other point, I'm going to go up into the left to complete my line with the negative slope. Just like that. Okay. Looking at another example. Okay. We have y equals 4x minus 3. My slope here, do it on the other side so I have space. Okay, my slope here, my slope is 4. My y-intercept is -3. Okay, again, 4, -3. The -3 is what we're going to put on the graph first. So I'm going to put my point there at -3. And then my slope is 4. So I'm going to go up 4 to the right 1, up 4 to the right 1. Okay. Remember when we first learned about slope, how we learned that the slopes that have higher numbers, like 4, are going to be way steeper than the lower numbers, like the one that we just looked at that was negative 1/4 or 2/3. These fractions are going to be more flat, and then the higher numbers, like 4, are going to be more steep. Okay. This last example, y equals negative 3x plus 2, right? So my m is negative 3. My b is 2. My b goes on the graph first, so I put that dot there at 2. And then negative 3, I will go down 3 to the right one, down 3 to the right one. If I want to go the other direction, I will go up and to the left, right? So up 3 to the left one, okay? And I'll draw my line, okay? Now we're going to talk about how to graph inequalities, okay? Inequalities are going to be very, very similar to graphing a line, okay? So you're definitely going to graph a line. You're going to use the same steps from above. Nothing there really changes. Inequalities that have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to are solid lines. Okay, you might remember from when we did our emojis, our different little emojis with the faces, that those have solid lines in them. I will draw those again for you here. We had the less than sign, the greater than sign. He had a closed in circle for the nose, for the equal to, and he had a solid line mouth, right? And that is because these symbols have solid lines, right? And then if you recall the other one, they just had the less than and the greater than with the open circle and a dashed line, okay? And so that's the next part of this, okay? Inequalities with just greater than or just less than are dashed lines. You might hear them say dotted, dashed, either way, it's just not completely filled in, okay? We are going to shade above the line, okay? Inequalities have shading on them, so we are going to shade above the line for these symbols, greater than or equal to, okay? We are going to shade below the line for the symbols less than or equal to, okay? And then let's talk about the solutions, okay? So, well, actually, let's just graph some of these and then we'll come back and talk about some solutions at the end, right? So here, my M is 1/2, 1/2. My B is -1. So I'll put my first point there at -1, then my slope being 1/2, I'll go up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, down to the left, down to the left, okay? This is a greater than sign that does not have the equal to line underneath it. So it is going to be a dashed line. So you can see I'm just going to make dashes all the way through. It still has arrows on the end, but it's not a completely filled in line. It's dashed, all right? Now, the greater than means we shade all of the numbers that are bigger, right? So 0, 1, 2, those are all greater than -1. So I am going to shade in the top. I'm gonna have to shade like this in the top of this graph, okay? You just want to get close to the line like this, everything that's on the top of this graph. Okay, so just take a matte pencil, colored, whatever, and you'll just shade in the top, right? Now let's look at the next one. Y is less than or equal to -3/4. Spinning back, okay? Negative 3/4 is going to be my M, and my B is going to be -2, okay? So I make my first point there at -2, and then to continue my -3/4 slope, I'm going to go down 3 to the right 4, up 3 to the left 4, okay? I made a mistake here and I accidentally went 5 boxes. I'm going to fix it real quick. Down 3, like that. Okay, this does have the equal to line underneath it. So if it has the equal to, it is going to be a solid line. And then because it is a less than, I'm going to shade below. Okay, so I'm going to do green for less than. It doesn't matter the color. I was just trying to kind of draw a little bit of a difference there. Then I'm just going to fill that in like that. Okay, everything underneath, everything less than -2 is going to be filled in there. Okay, now we have 2 more examples, so let's look at those really quickly. Right, the first one, the slope is going to be -2. So I'll go down here to my equation. I'll say, okay, it's -2, and go ahead and fill that in. The B is 3, 3. Okay, so I'm going to make my first point at 3 and then continue the -2 slope. In case you forgot, when you graph it, you have to put whole numbers over 1. So I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1, down to the right, like that, and then up 2 to the left 1 on the other side. This has a equal to line underneath it, so I'm going to connect these dots. Okay, this is a greater than, so I need to shade on the top. Okay, shading on the top for greater than. So everything above the line. Okay, you need to look starting at the y-intercept to determine if it's going to be above the line or below the line. Okay, so if we start our pin exactly where the y-intercept is, then that is going to tell us. So right here, if I need to shade above, I'm going to shade all the area that is touching the part that's directly above the y-intercept. Okay, last graph, my slope. If it just has x, that means 1. So my slope is 1, 1 over 1, and then my b is 4. Okay, I do not have an equal to sign, so I know that my line is going to be dashed. And it's a less than, and so it's going to be shaded below. Okay, so I start my graph at 4. A slope of 1 goes up 1 over 1. Okay, it's positive, so I'm going up to the right, down to the left. I'm going to go ahead and dash that through. And then to shade below, I'm going to say, okay, if I put my pen here on the y-intercept, which of these is below? It's going to be the part down there, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get our pen ready to shade. Then we will fill in all of the area below the dashed line. And that is how you graph equations and inequalities that are in slope-intercept form.